Actually, the member of the audience who spoke out there is actually correct. It should actually be PGLF with a small s. So, I mean, it's just, I'm surprised you, no, I'm not surprised you asked that question. With big S, nobody has a clue. With a small s, everybody would know. The other thing which people don't need to know about is too much, they call black goo. Has anybody heard of the black goo?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, just to head this off, my name is Miles Johnston, and I've been investigating the the BASIS series since about 1994. And we did our first recording way back in 1995. And essentially this is about programmable generated life forms. Okay? And has anybody heard the term transhumanization? Not too many people. The basic question is this real or imagined? Are programmable generated life forms some kind of invention? And is transhumanization really going to happen? And that's basically the problem. Because it is my analysis that we have got one generation left to actually do something about it. And you are that generation. Okay? And the reason for this is the warning, the alarm bells are here to tell us right in front of our face. This is a cyborg. This is a little robot which spoke to the Japanese. They're really into these little things. The Japanese actually have completely synthetic pop stars. These are actually programmed holograph type pop stars which actually dance on stage live to thousands and thousands of people. They're into completely artificial icons and completely artificial non-human entities. So this little thing was actually counted down, its own launch for the Japanese. That's being launched there. And there it is talking to the Japanese people from space. Now this should actually be a really big warning. This is actually in-your-face Cylons. And I'm going to use the term Cylon because the remake of Battlestar Galactica, I feel, is also a very big alarm bell. Very good TV series as well. And just to make it a little bit prettier, this is one from about a year ago. She is not a girl, she is a robot. Okay? Now we're dealing with very clumsy technology, and they've gone from Toyota. You buy a Toyota, you've got a robot. This thing's coherent, walks around, talks, does everything, right? And the point about this is, a guy called Barry King, in my early investigations when I was finishing off my sort of pirate radio broadcasts and pumping out watts on the Irish border, which is another whole part of my existence. I think I'll, like the Chancellor, hold up this case. These are my past offending unlicensed stations. There's people in there like Sky TV and stuff. They never had a license, Anyway, so the point about this is there's a connection here. The Barry King, who's this guy just on the top left, gave us a recording on VHS all those years ago. And the point about it is, he started talking about a base in Berkshire where they were making programmable generated life forms. These were under license from the Greys, and they were then being used in military abductions with people in this country and elsewhere. That's it in a nutshell. And this is my foundation box set of bases 1 and 2. I haven't made a DVD, actually made a physical copy, but this is the thing which kicked the whole thing off, right? So you've got Barry King, and he photocopied and handwritten, hand-typed and glued and stuck together these things called the voice files. And I helped actually copy them off, thanks to Sky Television. And this was discussed with another person called Lisa Williams. Now that's not her full real name, but Lisa Williams has had 2 children, both of whom are related with US Air Force people. And there's 2 basic things which will always come into this. The United States Air Force officers and that type of thing, and the Nazis, okay? So Lisa Williams discussed this, and we released that tape eventually in 1995, that was called Basis 1, and the main point of view is that these 2 people I recorded them, have the same basic information, but the same basic information comes from two totally different sources, right? Now the point about this is there's no evidence for this, right? The evidence is just hearsay. So this involves a population management system which is based in bases in the British Isles, focused primarily down the M3, M4 corridor, in Berkshire and Wiltshire, and connects with most of the military bases in that area, and then spreads out to all the rest. And the basic key to this is this is real. You know, really, this is really the big problem here. I mean, this is a lot of smoke. Where's the fire? You know. So way back in 93, 94, 95, we started investigating this, and eventually more witnesses suddenly came forward. We've got a lot more people talking the same basic thing. We're throwing in MK Ultra, we're throwing in the Monarch program, and this is happening in this country. Okay, it's not happening far away in America, but it's happening in the English countryside. In fact, I was speaking to somebody today who discussed how they were at the Greenham Common protest march, and they realized, that the women there realized they were being targeted by electromagnetic weapons. They realized after a long time that there was a mind control element, and it just turns out that the Greenham Common protesters were part of this Peasmore population management control system. So that's one of the up-in-your-face public little hints that what Barry King was talking about is real. So we've got a few alarm bells beginning to, if we had a lights thing along, we'd have an alarm bell bleeping, you know, another light. And these lights start lighting up, okay? So this is Lisa. Now the Lisa and Barry, this is from the first thing, we're talking about way back then, brainwashing, genetic engineering and genetic experiments, and it goes back with the Nazis. At that time, we did not know that Barry King's father was one of the British secret team who, as Germany fell at the end of World War II, Barry King's father got word of a secret laboratory in Germany, southern Germany, somewhere near Austria, and he actually encountered and saw different looking human beings. Now, we've got to get rid of this idea there's going to be aliens and it's off-world, okay? Let's just forget about the off-world ET side of things, right? So the Germans had a bunch of strange-looking humans near concentration camps with a strange-looking aircraft. Doesn't mean it was a flying saucer. The point was he got very sick and basically had to be pulled out. The Americans were next door. They took over and took this stuff back, but the British were involved with Nazis at that time and some kind of strange beings. And the basic point about what the Germans were trying to do, we understand, is that when you actually, as a human being, meet a non-human being, your auric field, or the dynamic electromagnetic or electrical energy field that you emit, and their dynamic electrical energy field that they emit as living beings, when the two interface, in a lot of occasions, it's too much for both parties and you override each other and cause problems. So what the Germans were doing is that they were trying to extract material from different races through the concentration camps, get certain people with certain characteristics and see if they could introduce those into a body so that when you did meet an ET or a being or whatever they are, you can actually shake hands and communicate. Now, Lisa has done a lot of work on this. She's doing an awful lot more work on this. And her work is concentrating on Reinhard Heydrich, if I get that name. Reinhard Heydrich, who was murdered, he was assassinated in Prague, was involved with this transgenic stuff, with this kind of lab that Barry King's father connected. And this is when we're beginning to get into the esoteric, this is when we're beginning to get into the hyperspatial, this is when we're going to get into transgenic with soul splicing. Now that's my term, but it's the it's the technology to try and get the human soul to sustain itself in this reality without ascension, or without what we call reincarnation. So they're actually now trying to deal with artificially controlled reincarnation, so they have a control over who's going to be around in this domain in the future. And she is connected with Reinhardt. She's just come back from Germany, dealing with that, and there's a lot of this about that, okay? So let's concentrate on Barry King, and I'm not really going to say too much more about that. Also at that time we interviewed Larry Warren, and at that stage when we were carrying out that interview, that was when the disgraceful Bufora alien autopsy thing was going on, but I won't go too much about that. The important thing about Larry Warren is that he was keeping that case going when just about everybody else wanted to keep it quiet. Okay? So what he actually said, I was too polite. He was talking in huge detail to a Sunday Times reporter. The most incredible amount of information he was giving the Sunday Times reporter. But I didn't want to hassle in on this guy's action and didn't record the bloody thing. If you ever get involved with a situation like that, press the fucking record button and argue about it later. Okay? So, I've got up to basis 31, but I've never made basis 3. And the problem with basis 3 is it involves Brenda Butler on the Rendlesham Forest UFO events. There has been a massive misinformation campaign on the location of the landings. The basic landings were left at Eastgate, which is what Larry Warren's book and Peter Robbins' book was. The landings are left at Eastgate. If you're left at Eastgate, it's the North Gate. Okay? That's where the landings were. That is where there was radiation after the landings, and it's where there's a junction, there's a gate between the Woodbridge base and the Bentwaters base. That's where the stuff happened. That's where we were able to go back. Brenda and her colleague Peter Paris were able to go back with a Geiger counter and measure the same tree stumps in the year 2000, and they still radiate a lot of radiation. That's all been dug up now and so moved on. But the point about it is, I have in the can many hours of recordings with Brenda Butler, where even at a location in the forest where they normally would meet, and she would go to some kind of trance state, meet with all kinds of dimensional beings. There was actually a physical tree. Local reality was actually changed, and there was a tree standing there for 2 weeks in a location where they would normally meet, and after 2 weeks it disappeared. The local reality was altered, you know. So we have a situation where local space-time is being altered and changed. This is way outside the box. It isn't a bunch. We're not talking about things which are simple alien landings. Now, there's very good evidence that a lot of what was going on with that particular 3 days event at Rendlesham Forest did involve testing of the local security with microwave energy systems, which affected the tall person and the short person. And I think Sashi Christie's done some pretty good work on that. Sashi Christie's also very brilliant researcher. She's also a woman we interviewed for Bases and the Image Project. And her children are definitely encountering beings, and I feel that she's also encountering what's called the jinn. A lot of her actions are dealing with the jinn. Now, she's also corresponded with the Colonel John B. Alexander, which I find quite interesting. I happened to get a rogue virus from Colonel John B. Alexander on my computer 2 days ago, just by coincidence. I don't know, I just happened to get there, you know. Okay, speeding on, one of the other issues which happened with the early days of Bases was we started having various people dropping dead. One of them was Ken Phillips, who's a former Before editor of Before's magazine at the time, and he told me that they were going to kill him. They were killing him, and he was dead soon afterwards. I'll shortly show an interview I did with Ron Adams, who nobody really knows about. Ron Adams is doing a great deal of research. He was also very into esoteric magic and the Crowley stuff. But he died with the Greys coming to him every night. But there was another dimension to Ron Adams, and it was about spiders. There's another guy, Tony Dodd. I've only just spoken to one of Tony Dodd's, a lady that he was involved with, one of the most important cases he actually was ever encountered with. This is a very lovely lady, and she was abducted in the sort of abduction highway area of Yorkshire, not too far from where he was, Skipton I think it was. She actually had a regression with Tony, and another man from the ministry turned up, and she physically shrank and moved off to the side, and this very tall entity, this something like what you would see in the pyramids, in the artwork of the pyramids, turned up and delivered a lot of detailed information to Tony Dodd and this man from ministry. She was never given any details as to what was said. The only thing that she was able to tell me was it was so shocking that the guy from the ministry, who was a good Catholic, basically left the Catholic Church and resigned his position from the MOD. He just couldn't handle it. And Tony Dodd kept his word, and that's remained classified to this day, and it died with them basically. There's another guy called Dean Warwick, who died on the stage of, and the last time I was there, I had a lot of warnings that, Miles, you are in danger of being taken seriously. And there was another, I think I've got 5 references to Dean Warwick. Miles, you're going to go on the same stage that he died on. You know, Miles, you know that's the stage that man died on, and you're going to be on that very soon. So who knows? John Summerscales may get her wish in the end. Who knows? Right, Ron Adams speeding along. Ron Adams, the thing about Ron Adams was that his family, and nobody really knew about this until quite recently, his family, Ron Adams had very close links with Lisa Williams. Ron Adams did a lot of regression with Lisa Williams, and that's when a whole whack of this Nazi stuff came out. Now this is hyperdimensional, to use a Richard Hoagland term. This is all about soul splicing. It's all about taking the human essence and pushing it into the future, or pushing it to places where somebody wants to put it, as opposed to leaving it sort of haphazard normal reincarnation. So there's a lot of mucking about with human essence, the human creation out of the physical body. And this is involving large spider octiform type beings at bent orders, and big spiders, right? So octiforms, right? The thing about it was that after the Rendlesham Forest UFO events of December 1980, Ron Adams and his family, who had otherwise been given complete access socially to all over the Bent Orders base, was suddenly said, right, you can't go there. Just everybody shut up, shut down. Okay, so the whole family was that. One of the best investigators we got in the business here is a guy called David Monker. He's Scottish. He's picked up on this case, and he's been dealing with this for almost 20 years, and we're still investigating with this with Lisa. And again, we're dealing with the Nazis keep coming up on this all the time. And that is, we'll just play this little clip.
Yeah, Ron, it wasn't very long before he died, actually.
So what happened with the story?
In essence, Ron died within 3 weeks of my
There was a skull with a snake. A skull on the top of the snake. Most interesting old symbol for dealing. Sorry. Well, definitely sort of occult leanings or whatever. Esoteric, for want of a better word.
You're not there. That's Lisa.
It's really interesting, wasn't it?
I didn't really believe that he was in as much risk as he felt he was. But I didn't know about the Bent Waters thing.
The Adams family is a family I met around about 1994, and they were the only civilian family to have lived in US Air Force Bent Waters from 1970 to 1976. They were surrounded by military personnel, were very friendly with all of the military personnel. They would go on all the dance days, go to all the Christmas parties, birthday parties of children, all the see the New Year in, you know. So from 1970 to 1976, they left in 1976, and Ron started running a bookshop in Highbury in London. I would think that the most important thing about the whole family is that Ron, his wife, his two sons and a daughter-in-law all believed that while during any stay at Yearsurf or Spentwaters they were abducted by aliens. The whole family, the whole lot. I talked to the wife, I talked to Ron the father, I talked to one of the sons, and the son indeed, whose name I can't remember, was very traumatized and had an instantaneous fear of terror, spiders. I think he was the younger of the two sons. He was the only one that I met when I was at Ron's in Chase Road in 1984. But he was very traumatized and became, in my opinion, he had a sudden fear of spiders, as I said, after abduction, which is like another abductee in Edinburgh that I met. Saw a UFO in the sky, all of a sudden whole life he's had an absolute terror of spiders. So to get on to the family living away from US Air Force Spentwaters from 1976 to 1980, they carried on their connection with US Air Force Spentwaters.
Right, the important thing about this is that I've got a little personal issue with spiders, because I met a big one about 12 feet tall on the back of Sky Television. And there's another wonderful character in this story, her name's called Brenda Woods. And she's aware of them. And the thing about these spiders is they're not dissimilar to the kind of things which are portrayed in the TV program Babylon 5. Now these kind of things, I feel may not actually be what we would call spiders, but they're actually like giant neural cells or intelligent devices of some kind, right? Now there's a problem about this, is that one of the previous presentations I was informed of a set of spiders which were in Cumbria and were kept down the mines down there, and they would take people, but it was all walled off and kept quiet. And there's a problem about the Cumbrian northwestern region. It's pretty isolated. It's sort of virtually all MOD land all around the beaches. It's got nuclear power stations. It's got a bit of a problem in terms of that. Now we've talked about the situation in the UK with MK Ultra and things like that. Well, the same thing here is happening in the United States. It's happening with children being taken to special needs schools, and they're all being programmed. And now this is now happening at a massive scale in this country. And one of the most prestigious and most wonderful people I've met in this field is Kathy Morgan. The work that she is doing in mind control, MK Ultra, is absolutely groundbreaking, because she is a twin and she's tracked her own personal case. She is an MK Ultra survivor. This is happening in this country, it's happening all over the place. She's talking about whole villages near Bath, near the village of Stainswick, where whole villages will just change. The people in them will just change. They're all on the program, they're all related to some kind of military thing. This is happening at a vast scale in this country. The indications here, this is absolutely massive, right? And it's with people in authority, and it's all very, very nice people. We have got a major problem here. So Kathy actually, during this interview, which is just only a few weeks ago near Silbury Hill, she actually began to break down, and this is basis 30, she actually began to break down and she just couldn't continue. Unfortunately there was a shower of rain and we stopped, but she's a wonderful, brilliant lady. They've been taking twins for decades, going back to the 1800s. They've been experimenting on them. They keep one in one particular position and then the other, they do certain things to them. Her sister is married to a person who's high up in Harwell, lots of intel and high levels. Now, one of the things which has now happened in this situation is that Barry King's on the left, he's getting a lot elderly now, was met by this guy called James Casbolt. And what a cat among the pigeons this is. I had a basic problem with Casbolt in that my video that I put out, eventually actually put basis one and put a whole lot together with more interviews, trying to critically analyse what was going on. I actually released it commercially as a VHS. And is there anybody in the room here who bought a copy of the basis one? You did? There's two people. Wow. So actually, so the point is that you could have become like James Casbolt. The point is, the basic point is James Casbolt, a wacko, who has watched my videotape and then reinvented lots of it, and then goes back to Barry King, gets more stories, and then he starts coming out with more and more stories. That's the basic, that's the dilemma that I've got. Now this is James, the first time he was interviewed by me at Truro College, quite some time ago. This is basis 4. And I sat on that interview for about almost 2 years, because I was expecting to see him again. He was very, very difficult to track down. And there he is, talking a great deal about a whole pile of things which are way off the scale in terms of what's going on. He's surpassing, he's gone so far past what Barry King was talking about. It's not just a copy with some imagination on my stuff. Lisa Williams, he lives down in St. Ives in Cornwall. Lisa Williams has moved down there, and Lisa Williams has been making some inquiries. There's a whole lot of bits of fabric of this situation beginning to actually catch up. Now, bringing us right up to speed, right up to date, I've just been at the Super Soldier Summit, where James Rink, James Casbolt, Alara Blackwell, and another guy very similar to James called Max Spears. He's English, same kind of background. These people are all sort of beginning to come out into the. This is beginning to, as we say, got legs. A story with legs. This is actually James in the army, actually training, and he's holding a thing called a gun. This is a thing called a gun. And this is a uniform, and he's sitting there, and he's actually doing something in the army, right? And so we re-interviewed James after the Basis 4 thing at the Probe conference in 2011. We got a lot more new information. This is where he was starting to talk about super soldiers, about Canada, about Nazis, about babies being taken for training camps in British Columbia and Canada. There's a global Nazi SS, Fourth Reich, all with fancy uniforms. They're using some kind of time reality fracturing technology. Now the point about this is, only about a month ago, the BBC aired a program with Uri Geller, which gave Uri Geller black ops approval. It put him right up there from the dodgy guy bending forks, right up into the dodgy black ops, heavy level black operations, psychic warfare, psych warfare environment, okay? That's a BBC program with a big alarm bell saying we're having psychic warfare, it's real. Now, just to recap, when I came back from one of the first UFO conferences in the States, congresses in the States, where I encountered a guy called Ray Wardle, which I haven't actually included on this basic summary. Ray Wardle was a British UFO investigator from South London, and he got a good job in Las Vegas, and he was in the Las Vegas casinos and doing a lot of surveillance. He's had a lot of free time, and he spent a lot of his time out looking at Area 51. He spent a lot of his time in the desert seeing stuff, talking about seeing holographic sort of airplanes which were flying around with no noise. He caught flying discs flying at tremendous speed straight into a cliff wall. Lots of stuff. He got pretty close to things, and he had a pretty rough time, and that's also in Basis 2. It's an indistinguishably just terrible interview which lasts about an hour. But the key to this was that he was hypnotized by people from the UFO Congress at the hotel, and he took pictures, and the thing they wanted to see was his Curlian image. In other words, they wanted to see what his hyperspatial energy field looked like. So they're looking at a hyperspatial energy field, or the Curlian signature, whatever you want to call that thing. That's what they're interested in. Now the key to this Uri Geller program, which essentially I feel at this cusp of possible World War III that we could be on, was that they kept on using the Doctor Who theme music during that program. Now anybody who understands how you put television programs together, you don't include the Doctor Who theme tune about a Time Lord and Daleks and manufactured, generated things. In the second main story of Doctor Who is about the creation of a cyborg Dalek race. 1964, children's television. you don't get that kind of alarm bell signature being underlined in a kind of program like that about psychic psyops and black ops, unless there's something going on. Because one of the things which Kathy Morgan had when she came to the AMASH conference, she met a guy in Nottingham called the hairdresser, and his hairdresser is British military, and he's talking to her about a thing called Project Oak Tree, which is time travel. Now there's a problem about that, in that having time travel with a physical body is a problem. But this is a British military operation in this country about time travel. What the hell's going on? Now time's running short, I'm just run this very briefly. This is the reason why I'm doing this is that the Casbolt has changed very dramatically in the space of only about 2 years.
In part 3, Michael Prince claimed the Looking Glass project was a piece of hardware involving mercury. It allowed operators to open portals.
Well, there's a lot in that, but the point about it is if you looked at James there, that's 2011. Okay? If you look at him at the end of 2011, he's joining the US military. Okay? So the point about Casbolt is he's British military. His story is that he's been involved with crash retrievals. He's also done special operations with drug dealers in London, bumped a few people off. Lots of fantastic stories connecting him with the British military. And for some reason he needed to join the US military, become a US citizen, and he swore himself in there. He was sworn in, allegedly, because there's a big problem with these photographs. Some people feel that this is staged. And the point about it being staged is whoever can stage these photographs, this is the passing out parade where he's in ordinary uniform and these guys are young men and they've made it. James didn't. From what we understand, he didn't pass his psych test, but he did get in and he was in there for about 6 months. So why bring a 36-year-old man one day before his birthday, which will disqualify him from joining the US military? Why do this? So there's a lot of questions need asked here as to what's really going on. Who's setting this illusion up? What's really happening here? You cannot take anything that this man says at face value. You can't dismiss it. You can't ignore it. And you can't pay too much attention. There's something going on here. Now there's another interesting connection here. James married his clone, or co-test tube Monarch Alpha presidential girl, Haley Mayer. And this is the Mayer family. And the Mayers misspell their names occasionally, deliberately. And something which she published after the Super Soldier Summit was a wonderful song, sung in such wonderful tones by Haley in 2003, is Jesus Christ is great in bed. I think I've sang it a bit better than she did. But the point about Jesus Christ is great in bed. I should be a pub singer, actually. The point about that is that the YouTube graphic, okay, so I can do that again if you want. The YouTube graphic has got Haley in the middle singing, you know, but there's a beam ship in it. A Billy Meyer beam ship. Okay? So that's a signature saying, hello, we're connected with Billy Meyer's alien beam ship stuff. Now some people think Billy Meyer's thing's a whole hoax. But what's a hoax and what isn't a hoax? What's really going on here? So I asked James, he's had a bit of a rough time since the Super Soldier Summit. And I managed to get an update with him. He's haggard, he's not looking too well. And he said an awful lot more things, and he is now going to train with this guy here called John Irwin. But just before I finished that, he admitted, he actually said, yes, Haley Meyer has got a big connection with the Billy Meyer case. Now that's a completely off-the-wall side field connection with that Austrian case. Okay? So what's really going on there? Again, they're giving us signals and they're playing games. Okay, John Irwin. John Irwin sat in with me with a guy when I was on a show with Richard D. Hall. And John Irwin sort of says, hello, give me a call. So I gave him a call and I interviewed him and he told me a whole lot of stuff about an elite task force. Now I've made a mistake here. It's not, from what we understand, an elite British task force, but it did work within the British Army. Basically, there's a few problems with John, but the basic story is John Irwin from Newcastle upon Tyne, a working class, decent lad, comes of age, and you have to, with conscription, which I think are about to restart here. So John Irwin goes straight into the British military, gets trained up. John Irwin thinks because he doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke, this qualifies him to join the 16. But there's another problem with John Irwin. John Irwin's mother left the family home, way back in the late 1930s, left the family home. His father was very concerned, very concerned, so they put a lot of advertisements in the paper, and the mother comes back pregnant. His father's as mad as hell, his legal father's as mad as hell. It leads to a very destructive relationship within the family. But that means that as long ago as 1930, somebody wanted John Irwin born. And I believe that the circumstances to him being born are rather suspicious, because 17 or 18 years later, when he joins the British military, he immediately is recruited for the 16. This 16 involves training with, shall we say, strange non-human officers with very white skin. And he is trained in a very particular way, where over 4 days he's taken out of body and back again, out of body and back again. And he is trained, he's demonstrated and shown all the interdimensional, dimensional portals and gateways that exist. Everything's shown to him. And that is called the one step beyond, because the one step beyond is one step beyond death. Now he has that story to tell, and will only tell it when there's enough money to make a movie which will make it tellable to everybody in one go. But this 16 became a fighting force in the Middle East, and he was trained in a particular way which is called the machine, which means he has got incredibly fast reactions, and he leaves anybody with martial arts standing. This is, again, the target for this was to get special crystal artifacts, 6 of which in one go, in one particular device, gave you access to a massive energy weapons system using extremely advanced technology, possibly very ancient human technology. But shall we say that John Irwin's team, of which he was the most junior member, got 2 of those, and that prevented the Illuminati and delayed their plans. Way back in 1958, 59, this team delayed the plans of the Illuminati in what they are doing to us now. Right? That's to say that, and that was to do with an ancient energy weapons system. They got 2 of them. These particularly got it at a raid. I'll just give you a little bit on this.
We first interviewed one of the British Army's elite super soldiers, John Irwin, in late 2010.
Now the thing about that was just, I can't really pause this. There's a signature here. On the top of that papyrus there was a signature from the elite Egyptian military forces who signed it saying, you are the most brilliant anti-terrorist special operations man we have ever seen. It was only after he published his book that the Egyptians and other Eastern Mediterranean governments knew a lot of these operations actually happened. And one of them, which was his final main raid, happened at a base called Jarabah. Now Jarabah is not found on any modern map, but it is found on old world maps. And basically this was one of the early Illuminati type, Bilderberger type meetings. And John's team that he was involved with, of which 12 were in active service, actively in the field, with 4 in backup providing logistics, went in and wiped out the lot. This was a meeting with Russians, Israelis, a whole pile of important Arab people, the whole lot were in there, and they went in there, took them all out, and got these artifacts about 8 inches long and about 2 or 3 inches deep, and when they shone lights on them, they activated, and all sorts of symbols and things came on them. And it was the knowledge that the knowledge and data in those devices, which is what the Illuminati had for the 4 other ones, they've been able to start constructing weapons systems and reality management systems from that data, but they don't have the complete set because John's team got it. Now the important thing about this is, you probably spotted a couple of things on this graphic. You notice that they're probably using the old kind of energy light bulbs here, which probably is very inefficient, which means this is a very, very bad graphic. You probably find that his hair isn't too good here. Or maybe you've noticed these other things up there. Has anybody noticed those things up there? Well, John noticed those things. These are the size of football stadia, and they took off from the Syrian desert at about 1 o'clock in the morning before they went in. And he was absolutely gobsmacked by this. But the important thing was that the rest of his team didn't matter a thing to them. Which means the rest of his team were familiar with them, so familiar with what they meant, they didn't bat an eyelid. Which means that the British military had elite British forces in the late 1950s who were completely up to speed with what the hell these things were. So any kind of defense significance, no defense significance, and all this sort of rubbish about non-disclosure and about exposure and all this sort of stuff, they knew about whatever was going on way back. And I submit, because Irwin was effectively chosen for birth in the late 1930s, this tells me that the British military have been dealing with these non-humans and off-world stuff for a minimum of 100 years. And that's just a concerted effort. This is him describing this, but I don't know what our time's like. This is the raid on Jarrah.
The object of the exercise was to get these articles out of this compound where these various officers and government officials were meeting in this building. But I still didn't know. I thought we were just there to eliminate these people who were at this meeting. It was when it's when they start talking about this, don't forget it, and they would keep on saying it, where will it be? And this is why I was listening. I mean, don't forget, I wasn't really important. I was on the sideline sort of thing. Now, I kept this it business, and I just kept turning around and said, don't worry about it, you know. But they kept on about it. It should be in the back of this office where they're having this meeting, and it's in this cabinet or whatever. And I kept on asking. I said, well, you know, what's this it business? And they said, so we've got the bag out, and they brought this little black box out about 9 inches, 10 inches long, 4 inches wide, about a couple inches deep. And they were struggling trying to open it. And eventually, I think it was Dynamo, he took the box and he squeezed it and the damn thing opened. And when it opened, inside was a sort of a red violet velvet cloth material. When he opened it up, it looked, what to me, it looked just like 2 bits of glass, but half an inch thick.
What shape? What shape were they?
Oblong. Just an oblong bits of glass with chunks missing out the side of it. And down the centre was about 8 inches long, 4 inches wide, about an inch thick, half inch thick, whatever. Right? I only had a glimpse of them. They opened them up, laid them on the ground, and we shone the torches on it. And when we did that, after a few seconds, they started sort of glow. And we had these little white lights coming off them.
Went into Jarrah, you saw something else?
Yeah, before we went into Jarrah, I saw 2 large circular, what we know as now as flying saucers. Don't forget, at the time I had no idea. I never heard about flying saucers before. Hadn't seen anything. So when I saw these 2 large objects taken off, which weren't making a sound, and it was a moonlight night, and they were glittering in the sun, and they took off and they didn't make a sound. And when I said, oh, look at that, they took me to shut up. I never saw anything, forget it. So they seemed to know, and not one of them looked up. Not one of You know, my team looked up.
Can you describe these?
Well, like I said, they were typical as sort of, you know, flying saucers. What we saw was 2 UFOs leaving the area as we were approaching the camp. These looked as though they were very old things. These were something that was obviously well made. They were very, very fast. In other words, it wasn't an experiment of any sort. But they were huge things, size of a football field. They looked old. They were shining, and there was lights on them, and like I said, they didn't make a sound. So I couldn't imagine any of us making something like that. I should imagine that, you know, it'd be noisy or whatever. They wouldn't have been perfect. And these things were really perfect.
Okay, this is a book of Nazi flying saucers from the Second World War. Did the UFOs that you saw in 1957 look anything like those?
No, nothing at all. These look like toys. These look as though they're just experimenting. No, they look nothing like this at all.
Right, now if you flip through some of the pages, maybe this is it. Okay, what about...
Yeah, they look more like that. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that they look very, very like that.
So what I'm essentially getting at here is, do you think that we were dealing with secret Nazi flying saucers involved with this meeting in 1957, and that you were circumventing the Bilderbergers, possibly were involved with secret Nazi flying saucers and maybe not alien?
I have no idea.
This is the important thing about John is he doesn't know, and
The exercise was...
so the point is, we've got German flying saucers flying around, or we have Germans who've got technology from people who built the same flying saucers. There's a lot of questions there. So what's really going on? Right, now the thing about James Casbolt is he's Michael Prince, and the reason why he's Michael Prince is because allegedly he's become a 10th level Knights Templar, and when you're a 10th level Knights Templar, you've got to change your name. So he's gone from James Casbolt to Michael Prince. Now the other thing about James Casbolt is he's not the only lunatic in the asylum. There's a whole lot of other people coming on here. And this is very, very subtle. There's a lot of connections here. It's very heavy stuff, and there's MK Ultra involved, there's British bases involved, there's lots of stuff involved. And there's Sky Television involved in broadcasting, okay? On the left you've got Project Mannequin. Project Mannequin was the project which Barry King was talking about. And as with a lot of these names, it's the message is in the name of the project, a mannequin, you know. And then we have another girl called Sarah Stanger. And there's her Stanger there, and there's her there. She came along with Joanne Summerscales as one of the first witnesses in the Amash project. The thing about Sarah Stanger is that she knew every single detail of every email and contents that I'd written at Sky Television, because I was tracking ET and non-human type activity at Sky TV. Because in pirate radio I met a few things. And there was a lot of stuff messing about at Sky which was not human and not something you would like to meet late at night. And then there was also the man from the BBC who said, look, I'm involved with the BBC, high-level management at the BBC, and my job is to monitor mind control at the BBC, you know, the old mind control at the BBC. And my job is to report to the Director General, and in his words, he called John Burt non-human. So you got this old problem of the man who's controlling the BBC is non-human. John Burt was a producer involved with David Frost, who interviewed Nixon, by the way. And was also involved with taking Simon Dee's show off the air, who was a prominent Radio Caroline disc jockey on London Weekend Television. Right? Now the point is, these girls, and Matt Todd, who's a new kid on the block and all this, all know James Casbolt. All know him one way or another. Sarah claims that James Casbolt was involved with gang stalking and other sorts of things. The term gang stalking is a very serious one. It involves completely unconnected people, no matter where the hell you go, acting with the same force, the same raison d'etre, the same mission. You can leave, you can go somewhere else totally, and there'll be somebody there waiting for you. And she said that James Casbolt was one of the people involved with doing stuff with her in Kingston. Matt Todd has had to retire from this for the meantime, because he was involved with out-of-body missions to attack alien bases in an etheric domain and Masonic rituals. He actually would go into the Masonic ritual, they'd be doing something to a skull. He'd drop in and smash the living daylights out of the damn thing in the middle of the ceremony. He was non-physical. So the important thing is that he's saying that when you're in the outer domain, when you're flying around out of body, you have physical power to do what the hell you need to do. Okay? Sarah Stanger, very, very interesting character. Right? Just happened to know everything I'd been doing at Sky. Right down to me working out the electrical supply system. The grid, the national grid, is an intelligent gathering. It's an artificial intelligent network. Okay? That's why we're all connected to centrally generated electricity, because the creatures which live at the power stations, these black entities, are in there. Right? And there's the wonderful Anya Briggs, again, knows all about James, and I thought that was a good thing, looking up at James. So the point is, there's an awful lot of connections happening here. It's getting very complicated. Okay, back to Matt. Basically, Matt involved with a lot of greys, and he was with a particular case. He was seduced with these two beautiful women. He's brought in. Everything's fine. He's having a good time. Matt was actually South African military. Very, very sharp, very, very positively involved. And these two beautiful women shapeshift into a couple of greys. The greys look shit scared. What the hell have we done? And because the US military officer coming straight into the room saying, what the hell did you bring him here for? Because Matt caused a few problems. He released a whole pile of people from a base, killed 4 or 5 greys, or ETs, or entities of some kind. And for his troubles, he got fired at, and a number of implants are in his body which actually magnets stick to him. Actually demonstrated. So he's actually had to take a bit of a back seat. He has a connection with James Casbolt. There's another guy called Dave Marrow. Dave Marrow's a black guy, he interviewed a wonderful guy. He's only been on the phone to me quite recently. Dave Marrow, as recently as about 2 days ago, was talking about Dr. Green. Dr. Green comes up in all the MK Ultra stuff. Dr. Green is Mengele from the Nazis. And he's still around, right? He's talking about lots of things, lunar satellite, remote viewer blockers. In other words, if you're a remote viewer and you want to find out what's going on in the moon, if you want to find out what's going on in satellites, something's there stopping you from finding out what's going on. In other words, there's an outer grid of the satellite system. If you want to go hyperdimensional or astral, you're getting blocked. And this is where Matt Todd referred to weapons systems, space-based weapons platforms. And this wonderful lady is Carol Rosen, and she was Werner von Braun's personal information secretary, and she was last year before, I think she's still trying to get a space-based weapons treaty signed. I don't think she has a hope in hell, but the best luck to her. Let's give people like this a chance. But the point is, Werner von Braun was telling her, through her, that we had all forms of terrorism, all forms of 9/11 type stuff we'd expect. And then the next one will be a fake alien weapons platforms and wars from off-world, which is what James Casbolt and his team are all talking about. So the point about all this is now this kind of technology, which John Irwin's stuff and the other 4 tablets that the Illuminati got hold of, they've been managed to interpret enough of this stuff to start mucking around, and it's getting onto the black market, it's getting onto people with enough money and with enough connections who are able to get hold of this technology, and they're using it to abuse people. And this is Solaris Blue Raven. I interviewed her, a great girl. She was also at the Super Soldier Summit, and she's just done a nice DVD which explains a lot of this with called The Eye of the Remote. And this is about synthetic telepathy, synthetic voice-to-skull technology. Some prat with a laptop and a bit of technology can target you, because again what they do is they use your individual energy signature, your individual auric fields, like a fingerprint. And what they're doing is they're able to check your field rather than the other guy's field. And with one of the I haven't done basis 23, I don't know, the 3 seem to be slowing me down. Basis 3 and basis 23 are still in production. I've interviewed a guy called Gridkeeper. Gridkeeper was involved with the guy who's been getting those pictures of the space-based 3-mile wide platforms up in space. they were having a few things with that. He happened to come up with something, and the point was his energy signature on his auric field changed. And an American AWACS communications aircraft decided to come down through the clouds and have a look. Actually eyeball the guy. So this is the point, and what we're leading to here is our actual energy field is being detected. They're looking for it. Your thoughts, your abilities come up on somebody's radar scope, and there's technology which dickheads, excuse my language, can get access to and start causing you problems. The thing about Solaris is she's fought back, which means you can fight back. Don't get overwhelmed with any of this stuff. You can fight back. And she gave her attackers, her stalkers, her telepathic attackers, a hell of a bit of a problem. And I interviewed her on synthetic ESP, 2 hours of that via Skype. And there's now organizations actually now being set up to deal with this. This is, you know, if you get together and actually, you can actually go up to people with a meter and measure these implants on people. Matt Todd did it with the guy Matthew Todd earlier, did it with Dave Marrow. Actually went up to his back with a meter and actually got indications, full-scale readings. And that particular meter is now suddenly not available anymore. You can look it up on the internet, you can actually hit the order button, and then you get it stopped. You make a phone call, say, is that in stock, could I order it? No, it's been taken off sale, because there is technology which can measure these things, and if you as Joe Public can get hold of it, they don't want you to get hold of it. Now this is simple technology. It measures 1.5 megahertz into the 20 megahertz range as a signal strength meter. You know, you can build these things if you get somebody with a private company to do these sort of things. In the same way that the orgone devices, you can build this to cause disruption. So you can fight back. These kind of orgone things built with random metal things. Now, these guys are the International Center Against the Abuse of Covert Technology. They will not touch the conspiracy side of things with 15 barge poles. They will not go anywhere near it. They are strictly going to deal with the physical ability of them to take a meter and under controlled conditions actually measure something coming from people. And as recently as about 3 or 4 weeks ago in St. Anne's-on-Sea, they held a day out for people to get checked. And I think they measured up to 70 people who came up with these indications of something in their head. Now the point about this is this goes much higher. There's lots of different implants. There's all types of different things which you can measure them on. But the point is you just stick to a simple radio frequency meter. You get your first stage of indications. The other way of doing it is to get a mineral lamp, which is a tri-frequency ultraviolet light, which you use for measuring nice minerals and rocks. And you can actually, under complete darkness, be scanned by this. And if you've got marks on your body, the ultraviolet light will show this up, that some other beings have physically been putting hands on, or whatever, the tentacles on, or whatever they've got. And you can actually see this under ultraviolet light. You can see it with your own eyes, and photograph it. So, I've just been speaking to Dr. Rowney Kilda. She doesn't really want too much publicity on this, and she's lobbying in Europe to have something very similar. The idea is to actually have legislation so that if you're in a position like Solaris and you're getting attacked with synthetic telepathy, that you can actually take people to court, have them prosecuted, and send them to jail. That's nuts and bolts, everyday, simple legislation to stop the abuse of so-called covert technology. So let's hope that happens. Well, probably going to have a break shortly. I'll just mention this, then we have a cup of coffee. There's a nice restaurant up there. There are scientists, I call them flat earthers, who actually want to take, I wouldn't say your mind out of your body, but they actually have a published 5-stage process, 4-stage process to actually take the living essence of you and stick it into a cyborg by the year 2045. We're now in 2013, which means we have one generation left to deal with this. We are the last humans who can do something about this. The rest of them are asleep. You guys have woken up, so you've got to do something about it. Now the point about this is that this is, whether this is actually possible or not, or whether they're actually going to do it, they're actually saying they're going to do it. The loopy-loos, crazy. But they are top scientists who are sort of holding up their iPhone saying, why have an iPhone in your hand when you can have it in your head like this guy? Now this is science fiction, but this is the intention. And there was an Open University programs published, transmitted by the BBC in 1999 called Project Soul Catcher. British Telecom were going to put nanotechnology into your brain so that you could record every single electrical impulse and discharge of energy in your head, just like in, in the Star Trek, we're going to put these things in your head. This is what they're saying. These are bearded people in armchairs and slippers and cardigans. These are real, okay? These are people who are going to say, British Telecom, we're going to do this. Good old British Telecom. And then you'll be able to go and see what Mummy and Daddy experienced in their life, because you'll be able to replay their life from their own personal experiences. You'll be able to do this. Right, this is 1989, this is. But we're now in 2013, and there's a bunch of loopers called the 2045 Strategic Social Initiative. These people have got money, a lot of money. They're doing it. Okay? Now the point about this is, Barry King was talking about this kind of stuff being done in labs in Peasmore that the Germans were dealing with or experimenting with way back in the 1940s. John Irwin has told me that they've already done this with people's heads. Right? This is real Frankenstein stuff. Stick the head on a body. See if it still works. This is happening. This is stuff which, when I heard 20 years ago from Anthony Hilda, what's his name, was a lot of wacko crap. You're mad, okay? But they're actually planning to do this. They're watching the TV program, it's called Cylon. But Doctor Who had that, they called it a Dalek in 1963. So what the hell did the BBC know? This is the actual technology as it evolves. Right, this is somebody you can put all this stuff on and wait, you're walking like a weight tunnels, right? This is the simpler stuff. And ultimately, why have these guys when you got a thing like this? There's this weapon systems, bazooka, legs. You've seen those types of legs on Olympic athletes and how fast they can run and how much they can sustain themselves. This is happening. So we have a situation where we go from this, the cyborg robot, to this. The phrase is, the Cylons look like us. Good, very nice. But, according to John Irwin's situation, we have done this before. We did this 1.5 million years ago. We have created this before. We are repeating this problem. So we go from this to this. It has happened before. And then they come back and try to make us back into this. Well, we'll break there and I'll have 15 minutes and I'll carry on with that. The coffee shop just up at the corner, and we'll see about how they're implementing this. All right.